everybody, welcome to this tutorial about frames per second and slow motion. This tutorial right now is just an overview. It's an overview and introduction about these different tutorials. I'm going to go in detail about these different tutorials later on, but right now I just have an introduction. This is a shot done with the Canon 7D and it's done in 50 frames per second. And it's slowed down to 25 frames per second, and then you end up with a nice result with a smooth slow motion. The next video is showing something we are not going to talk about in these tutorials. This is a shot edited with the plugin called Twixtor. The Twixtor make kind of fake frames, and it's really cool plugin, and you know, the result gets so super nice. But as you can see in the clip here, if you see in the sail here, you have some kind of some unwanted warping effects. For sure you can kind of adjust that with the plugin, and you know, do it even better than this clip. But the reason why I show you this here is, you know, this is also a thing about frames per second, but in these tutorials we are going to talk about the real thing, and the real thing is frames per second all the way up to 240 frames per second. And as everybody know that the GoPro Hero 3, the Black Edition, have this possibility to do filming even way up to 240 frames per second. And as you can see this clip here, it's been slowed down 10 times. So it's the result here is in 24 frames per second. And in my opinion, I think this is wow, this is super cool, because with 240 frames per second, not a super expensive camera, you have this super possibility to make a super nice slow motion. So the helicopter is just some editing thing. It's just animation done in the clip later on. I just put it in just for fun here. So then we can ask ourselves a question: why do we want to concern about frames per second? One of the reasons why we can concern about the frames per second, because some of the editors you use, maybe use a really cheap one, maybe use an older version of iMovie or some other versions of some editors that, you know, maybe they don't take care of all the frames per second. So that's it. Then it's kind of nice to have control over the frames per second. And in the tutorials later on, we will get a clue about how to get control over the frames per second, and why concerned about frames per second and how much we can slow down. This is, in my opinion, I think the lowest way you can go down in slow down a clip is down to 24 or 25 or 30 frames per second. I think that's the lowest. We are going to talk in detail about that later on as well, but I can take an example here. This is a 50 frames per second shot done 10 times slower, and then we end up with 5 frames per second. And as you can see, the result there is kind of horrible. And the reason why it's horrible is because the same picture is shown several times. So then we end up with the result that not a smooth slow motion at all. So if we have a look at this 240 frames per second shot, as you can see here, the result there is super nice. It's super smooth. You can see the details in the ski going like that, and the breath there and everything, and even so snow coming here. Yeah. So, you know, I think it's really cool with this possibility all the way up to 240 frames per second. The next thing we can ask ourselves, why these tutorials? You know, this information here in these tutorials is not some super advanced things, but I remember when I was kind of searching for information about slow motion and frames per second and editing and like that, I couldn't find all the information in one place, and I was thinking, okay, why didn't I give it a try to make some tutorials about it? So in the tutorials, I'm going to use this windsurfer clip and this cross country clip, and if you want to download this clips just for fun. You know, maybe you want to do some experimental thing with your editor. Maybe you want to test out how it works. If you don't have a clip with 240 frames per second or 50 frames per second, you can download it for free at yetanothersolution.blogspot.com and just test out. And one other thing you can download on the same place is this slow motion convert table. This is not even not advanced thing, it's just simple mathematical things, but I thought it was kind of nice to have this overview over the different, some of the different softwares. You have QuickTime Pro. We are going to go deeper into QuickTime Pro editing, and we are going to slow motion editing in QuickTime Pro 7. And we are going to have a look at Premiere Pro and iMovie and so on. So as you can see, if you have this slow motion, we can say if you have want to slow down to half speed, you know, it's really easy that in Premiere Pro or iMovie, it's 50%, you know, that's really easy. But why? What if we want to slow down 8 times from 240 frames per second? Then we can go into this slow motion convert table and see that in iMovie, you put in 12.5%, or even way up to 240 frames per second. As you can see in After Effects, the time stress factor is then 1000. So feel free to download it. I think it's this table is useful. So then this is this introduction and overview. The next tutorial we're going to have a look at, we are going to deeper into the theory behind frames per second. So I hope that will be a nice tutorial for you. The next tutorial after that, tutorial number 3, will be about QuickTime Player 7. The reason for having a look at QuickTime Player 7 in detail is that, you know, QuickTime Player is a really nice software to use together with your editor, because it's really fast to use. So then we are going to do in tutorial number 4, we are going to slow down some shot done with the Canon 7D, and we're going to slow down a 50 frames or 60 frames per second shot, and we're going to slow it down in QuickTime Pro, in iMovie, GoPro Cineform, After Effects and Premiere Pro. And then in tutorial number 5, we are going to slow down a shot done with the GoPro Hero 3 Black Edition, and then we are going to slow down even the way up to 240 frames per second, and we're going to do that in QuickTime Pro, iMovie, GoPro Cineform, After Effects and Premiere Pro. Okay, and this tutorials number 6, 7, 8, 9 and 10, it's just quick guide. If you want to go directly into one of those software, you can go directly to that. And then it's an extra tutorial about compressing the video for YouTube or Vimeo with using Adobe Media Encoder. So I hope you found this introduction useful, and I really hope you're going to follow some of the other tutorials to follow. The next tutorial now will be about frames per second and slow motion, and we're going to go in the depth of frames per second and more detail about that. Okay, I hope you'll be back to the tutorial number 2. Bye now.